Hello everyone, welcome to the Hindu analysis for 10th February 2021. Let us begin with the first article. SC relief from arrest for Tharoor and senior journalist. So little bit of background for this. On 26th January, a farmer protester died when his tractor turned turtle during the tractor rally that was happening. This person was involved in the violence on 26th January. And he was trying to ram the barricades put up by the Delhi police with his tractor. In ensuing process, his tractor turned turtle and he died due to injuries from that accident. But soon rumors started swirling that he did not die of accident, but he died because of police shot him. Meaning police fired upon protesters and one protester died to a gunshot wound. So, following that rumors, some prominent journalists from various newspapers and online news sources, including Mr. Shashi Tharoor, who is an MP from Kerala, tweeted stating that a farmer protester was killed by police action when he was shot during the ensuing violence of 26th January, which was contradicting to the truth. The truth was he died due to an accident that was made on his own accord. No police action was involved in that. So in a sense, what this journalist and Mr. Shashi Tharoor tweeted was fake news or misinformation. Accordingly, Delhi police post 26th January lodged complaints and filed cases against few journalists, including Mr. Shashi Tharoor, on sedition charges, stating that they were inciting violence by sharing or spreading misinformation. So they were booked under sedition charges and they were about to be arrested. So Mr. Shashi Tharoor, MP, along with the accused journalist, went ahead and went before Supreme Court for protection from arrest. So the Supreme Court on Tuesday protected Congress leader Shashi Tharoor and 6 other journalists from arrest in multiple sedition FIRs registered against them for allegedly tweeting and sharing unverified news that a young farmer died at the hands of police during the tractor rally held on Republic Day. So here the only important aspect is what is sedition and what are sedition law. So sedition is defined as any action that brings or attempts to bring hatred or contempt towards the government of India and has been illegal in India since 1870. It falls under section 124A of the Indian Penal Code. Britishers were the first to use sedition. Britishers brought the sedition law into India. Britishers used sedition law to convict and sentence freedom fighters. It was their tool to suppress dissent when freedom struggle was going on. It was first used to prosecute Bal Gangadhar Tilak in 1897. That was the first case a sedition charge has been brought up an Indian citizen, particularly of that prominence, that is Mr. Bal Gangadhar Tilak, in the year 1897. From then on, there were a lot of petitions challenging the validity of the sedition law, but the first instance where Supreme Court held or verified the constitutionality of the law in itself was in year 1962. In 1962, the Supreme Court decided on the constitutionality of section 124A in Kedarnath Singh versus State of Bihar case. That was the first case where the sedition law has been entirely brought up or discussed at the highest court in India, and the constitutional validity of the court has been set. Post Kedarnath Singh versus State of Bihar case, there were 2 or 3 multiple cases where the definition has been retuned and certain aspects have been corrected, in the sense that the far-reaching aspect of sedition law has been little bit curtailed in the later Supreme Court judges also. So why is there a lot of pushback or anger towards the sedition law in itself? The current government in power has been accused of using sedition to silence dissent, meaning the government is using sedition law or sedition charges to suppress anybody criticizing the government or pointing out faults in the government. which is against the spirit of democracy, whether you agree or not. So the right to dissent is an healthy aspect of any thriving democracy. But when sedition laws are being slapped on journalists and individuals who are trying to speak up, their right to dissent is being taken away by the state government or state machinery here. So we have to be very careful and we have to be very respectful of the sedition law and sedition charges in general. Coming to the next article, Center objects to plea against Special Marriage Act. So this is in terms of a couple approached the Delhi High Court to challenge certain sections of Special Marriages Act. So this is not the first case challenging certain sections in Special Marriage Act. Earlier in Supreme Court last year, there was also some petition that was filed challenging few sections in the SMA. Right now, the case that has been taken up is in Delhi High Court. So the couple approached the Delhi High Court asking to strike down section 6 and section 7 in Special Marriages Act. So let us understand what is the current scenario and what is Special Marriages Act and what are the sections that are being talked about here. So the center has objected to a petition seeking to discontinue with provisions of inviting objection from public when applying for marriage registration under the Special Marriage Act. So the particular objection raised by is, we cannot agree with what the petitioner here is asking for, because whatever we have been following through the law is of good sense and good faith. So the center is objecting to the petitioner's request, that is strike down certain aspects of Special Marriages Act. So what is section 5? Section 5 requires that a notice of intended marriage to be given by the parties of the marriage to the marriage officer of the district where at least one of the parties to the marriage has resided for a period of not less than 30 days immediately preceding the date on which the notice is given. So section 5 states that Special Marriage Act especially applies to people who are marrying in interfaith marriages and intercaste marriages. Generally these marriages happen with the opposition of the family. So these both are consenting adults and they want to marry a person from different faith or different caste. So they come out of the family and marry the person that they like. So in that circumstances, certain processes that general traditional marriage traditions may not be followed. So the Special Marriages Act allow the solemnization, meaning the legalization of such intercaste and interfaith marriages which do not follow certain traditional norms. So the problem comes with this specific section where when you are about to use SMA and marry somebody, you have to give a 30-day public notice to the marriage officer in any district, and the person who is submitting the notice of 30 days must have been residing for at least 30 days in that city or place where they are applying for the marriage license. That is section 5. Section 6 mandates that all such notices received shall be entered in the marriage notice book, and the marriage officer shall publish a notice by affixing a copy thereof to some conspicuous place in his office. Meaning, when the couple give their 30-day notice to the marriage officer under section 5, under section 6, the marriage officer must receive the notice and enter the details in the marriage notice book, and he has to paste the notice or display the notice in a very prominent place for public to see in his office. So that is section 6. Coming to section 7. In section 7, if an objection is made under section 7 to an intended marriage, the marriage officer shall not solemnize, meaning officialize, the marriage until he has inquired into the matter of objection and is satisfied that it ought not to prevent the solemnization of marriage, or the objection is withdrawn by the person making it. Special Marriage Act allows solemnization of marriages without going through any religious customs or rituals, as I said earlier. The ministry added in its affidavit that the procedure laid down in the Act for registration of marriage is fair and reasonable. The couple which has filed the petition in the Delhi High Court has asked that the 30-day period offers an opportunity to kin of the couple to discourage an intercaste or interreligion marriage. So both the points are in a sense valid, and we have to wait and see how the Delhi High Court decides. Coming to the next article, fine-tuning the state of the app technology. So this particular article discusses about applications that are being developed by state governments, meaning state bodies that are developing applications to meet their specific needs. So the case that has been taken up as an example here is WhatsApp has announced an upcoming change to its privacy policy that everybody knows, which led to a growing concern around privacy among many users and who have started switching over to other messaging services such as Signal and Telegram. This led WhatsApp to issue the advertisements which committed to protecting privacy of its users. If you remember, when the entire saga was going on, every major English newspaper in India had front page ads stating that WhatsApp stands for privacy of users, but in reality their privacy was so draconian in sense that they were willing to share WhatsApp users data with their home group, that is Facebook, which they weren't doing earlier. And they were also following a double standard for Indian users and European users. In the case of Indian users, they clearly stated that the users had no choice in saying whether WhatsApp will share data with Facebook or not. But in the case of European Union users, the users can decide whether they want to share their data with the Facebook or not. WhatsApp's parent company is Facebook. WhatsApp was bought by Facebook few years back. So coming to the app privacy aspect of Indian users and apps developed by the state governments and the central governments. So Indian consumers are becoming more aware and concerned about the data protection and privacy. That is absolutely true. We have the intention behind people migrating to apps such as Telegram and Signal is privacy. The issue of privacy is crucial for government technology platforms and services as governments typically have a monopoly in providing public services. Unlike the private sector, government has the monopoly on services. For example, if you don't like an app that is being developed by private players, you can migrate to a different app. Case and when users did not like the privacy policy of WhatsApp, they simply migrated to Signal and Telegram. But coming to apps that are run and developed by state governments, most of these state government apps are targeting services, meaning people need those services and they need access to that app in order to gain those benefits from the government. But when the privacy policy of the state government apps is not good, the user, meaning the citizen of the state or the country, cannot simply go to another app, because this is not a private company, this is the government. There is only one government and only one app. You cannot say that the privacy policy of the app developed by the government is not good, I am going to shift to another app. Hence, porting out or digital migration as seen in the case of WhatsApp is not an option. There is no option for you. There is only one app and you have to use it if you want to get the services or gain access to the services. If you don't like the privacy policy, you can opt out, but you will also lose the services that are being provided by the governments. So what is the needed here? So what is needed instead is an examination of governmental technology platforms to create better awareness. We need to create an ecosystem where the government technological environment should set an example for private players, meaning the government should create a benchmark in terms of privacy and data security, so much so that the private players cannot question the validity or authenticity of individuals' claim that our government is providing much more data security than what you are providing, and why can't you do the same. For example, look at Aadhaar and Arogya Setu. Since Aadhaar was introduced, the first question that was raised in terms of the validity or authenticity or the need for Aadhaar and such services was data security and data privacy. Because we were not only giving our personal details through Aadhaar, we were giving our iris scans and biometric data. Since the announcement of first lockdown on March 24th, 2020, Arogya Setu app has become the flagship app for India's COVID response. So then also a lot of questions were raised regarding the privacy security of Arogya Setu app. At least 35 mobile apps that specifically address the COVID-19 were developed by 25 states and union territories of India. Of these, 27 mobile apps provide general information of COVID and allow tracking of nearby COVID cases. So not only the Arogya Setu app developed by the central government, each state and union territory has come up with their own Arogya Setu style apps to track their own data and create their own data sets. So out of the 35 mobile apps, 27 mobile apps had general information regarding COVID. Seven of those 35 allowed tracking of nearby COVID cases, out of which 15 have quarantine tracking feature, and at least 4 of these require prior registration with the state health department. Development of COVID-19 mobile apps, as we all know, was well received and perceived as a strong proactive initiative, especially by the sections of population that were digitally empowered. So it had two pitfalls. In India, most of the population is not as digitally empowered as the rest are. So India's digitally excluded, that is more than 50% of the population, did not enjoy the access or had access to such services. So this analysis shows that various mobile apps on COVID operated by different state governments lack consistency in terms of features, functionality and frequency of information updates they offer. Most of these apps were updated manually, they were not automated, and one state app differed from the other, meaning no two apps shared similar features, and the APIs that these apps were using were completely different to the other. Even the Arogya Setu app did not match with any other state government app, even though Arogya Setu was developed by the central government, meaning at the federal level. So most of the state mobile apps also differ significantly on the data privacy they provide, depending on the information or permission they request from the user. So not only the design aspect or the API aspect was different for each and every app, mind you, 35 apps, the data that each app has been asking from the users was also varied differently and wildly. So when observed in terms of privacy, most of these mobile apps requested access to location services, access to device ID, access to call information, Bluetooth setting, camera, contact information, and some even went into the far reaches of in data mining, as that they requested access to user accounts on the device in itself. So the questions raise, what are they looking for here? And when you technically inspect these apps, all these apps do not meet the two commonly accepted principles of data privacy. That is necessity and proportionality. Necessity in terms that do these apps need that much of data? So for a person to be tracking, you need 2 or 3 things, that is a person's name, the person's location and the person's activities, meaning they must be able to ping their location at any given point of time, so that the monitoring authorities can verify whether the person is isolating or not. All these could have proactively followed established principles of privacy by design, such as minimal data collection and end-to-end data security, but they did not. In reality, they did not have basic principles of privacy by design or by default, nor did they follow a minimal data collection policy, nor did they follow end-to-end data encryption or security. And most of them were unusable given the APIs used and lack of features. Most of these used to be very buggy and they were vulnerable for hacking or breaching also. So what is the solution here? One possible solution is the adoption of an API-based microservices architecture and federated database structure with an appropriate governance framework could address the issues. So the simple solution is coming without a mandated microservices structure, meaning the central government along with other stakeholders must discuss and form a basic skeleton structure for developing state government apps. Meaning whenever a state government in the near future wants to develop an app, it must follow the federated, meaning a federally agreed upon structure in developing the app. So the app must cover all basic aspects of design, and they must adhere to data privacy and data security principles that were federated by the central government in accordance with all stakeholders, meaning state players and private players. So that is the need of the hour, a central government mandated structure to be followed and implemented when developing state-run applications. So it would allow, for instance, Arogya Setu to integrate with the myriad of state mobile apps to offer both its standard services and state-specific services also. Not only this app would be a central structure, the states can add their own layers to the app, but in overall functionality, that app will be same as the app that is being developed in the next state, meaning there is an interconnectivity and interoperability between apps that are being developed by state governments. So the state operated apps must move from a centralized data flow system to a decentralized data flow system. So the decentralized data flow system, which some European countries have already adopted and finding success in terms of data privacy and data security. Now it is time for us to also move from a centralized data flow structures to a decentralized data flow structures, and governments must take necessary steps and conduct necessary studies in order to see the advantages in moving from a centralized data flow structure to a decentralized data flow structure. And the government must also use its institutions to audit regularly on the apps that are being developed for security breaches and whether they are meeting the norms set by the government or not. Coming to the next article, Joe Biden and Modi talk of democratic institutions and norms. So US President Mr. Joe Biden discussed democratic institutions and norms with Prime Minister Narendra Modi during a phone call. So language of the White House readout is significant concerning what is going on in India. So the White House statement said that they talked about free and open Indo-Pacific. So the readout completely says that United States and India will work closely together to win the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, renew their partnership on climate change, rebuild the global economy in a way that benefits the people of both countries, and stand together against the scourge of global terrorism. And both the leaders agreed to continue in close cooperation to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific, including support for freedom of navigation, territorial integrity, and stronger regional architecture through Quad. So the readout from the White House is of significance because it doesn't talk about protest or farmers' protest. So it clearly states that whatever the White House policy in terms of India is entirely dependent on Indo-Pacific, meaning nudging China. So they are also in a way recognizing that whatever is happening in India is an internal matter, and it is up to India to decide what they do with the protest or whatever they do with the laws. As far as US is concerned, or as far as the Biden administration is concerned, we are only concerned about trade, cooperation, and Indo-Pacific, meaning how we are going to counter China with using Quad as our tool. Coming to the next article, as Twitter seeks talks, ministers move to Indian-made app Co. So this was an interesting development in that happened yesterday. So yesterday there was a lot of, we are aware that there is a lot of friction going back between the central government and the company Twitter. Central government has asked for certain accounts to be removed from the Twitter, which Twitter did not do so. Meaning first they did, again they restored those accounts. Few days back, the government again asked Twitter to take down 1,000 fake accounts or bots from Twitter platform. But there is the Twitter company is negotiating with the central government as to what it can do and it cannot do. At this juncture, many IAS officers and many ministries of the government have set up new accounts on a social media platform called Co. Co is an Indian social media platform similar to Twitter that has been entirely developed by Indians, meaning it's an Indian app. It's an Atmanirbhar app. But Twitter also said that we continue to be engaged with the government of India from a position of respect, and we have reached out to the Honorable Minister, that is Minister of Electronics and Information Technology, but they haven't heard from the ministry itself. But yesterday the Minister of Technology, he himself created an account on Go. Coming to the next article, Lokpal panel minutes need not to be disclosed. So a right to information activist filed a petition in front of CIC stating that the minutes of Lokpal meeting, meaning the minutes where Lokpal panel is being constituted or elected or selected, the minutes of those meetings must be released to the public. So this has been going on for last few days, and to an extent last a few months also. But the central government came out and said that we are not going to disclose the minutes of Lokpal Selection Committee's meeting. That was the stand of the government, but the activist approached the Chief Central Information Commission, CIC. Now it has come out that the Central Information Commission, that is CIC, has also upheld the central government decision. During the deliberations, the Department of Personnel and Training said that the confidentiality of the said records can be gauged by the fact that the award minutes of the selection committee were received in a sealed cover, meaning the minutes of the committee where meeting where the Lokpal committees is selected, the meetings come in a sealed cover. So it invoked the exemption clause in section 8(1)(e) of the RTI Act, claiming that the documents authored by third parties under reference here is held in a fiduciary capacity by the Department of Personnel and Training. So they said that whatever the document that comes, meaning the minutes of the meeting of the selection committees, are fiduciary in nature, meaning they are authored by third parties and they are held by the Department of Personnel and Training in good faith. So what is fiduciary? A fiduciary is a person or organization that acts on behalf of another person or persons, putting their client's interest ahead of their own, with a duty to preserve good faith and trust. Being a fiduciary thus requires being both bound legally and ethically to act in the other's best interest. So that is what the Department of Personnel DOPT is saying here. We are a fiduciary. But the petitioner, who is a right to information activist, clearly said that there has been no prior judgment that the recommendations of public officials are fiduciary in nature. Now they are approaching the courts to settle this matter. Through this article, I just wanted to highlight section 8(1)(e) of RTI, where they can deny information to public by invoking certain clauses. Coming to the next article, virus unlikely to have leaked from lab. So since the saga of coronavirus has begun, we have been seeing back and forth between China and the world by not allowing an investigation group or a scientist panel to visit and investigate the origins of coronavirus in Wuhan. Came out with the report and said that virus was unlikely to have leaked from lab. Indirectly, they are giving a clean chit to the Chinese authorities, saying that the accusations made by various countries and various scientists around the world that the virus leaked from a lab, and all scientific data points to a leak from the lab in itself. But here the World Health Organization is coming out saying contrary to what the world is believing and saying that it did not leak from the virology lab. We cannot say for sure where the origins has taken place. Coming to the next article, government to clarify e-commerce FDI rules. So the central government plans to issue a clarification on foreign direct investment policy for the e-commerce sector in the wake of investigations into some foreign players' operations following complaints about malpractices. So the government has sought information from the online marketplaces as part of a probe into certain complaints from customers and small retailers about certain practices of e-commerce companies. So Piyush Goyal, our Ministry for said that, to reiterate, e-commerce is supposed to provide an agnostic platform so that buyers and sellers can trade with each other, and the platform should not become a part of the trading transaction. Neither should it be funding it or having algorithms that give preference to one or the other party. They should neither be promoting their own products but provide all data required to make a rational choice, and the choice should be the free choice of the consumers. And he said that we believe that the buyers and sellers should be given an opportunity to trade with each other, and platform is only a service provider. Here he is clearly indicating that the law of the land is all major e-commerce websites are just service providers. They are not sellers or resellers. But in reality, all the e-commerce platforms are selling their own products according to their own wish and will. So few people have complained, and the central government is investigating those complaints. Accordingly, if they saw certain malpractices taking place, so in order to correct those, they are going to bring certain changes in the e-commerce aspect of foreign direct investment policies. Thank you. Have a good day.